This evening, where are you coming from?
Just left my office downtown, heading home.
Uh-huh. What kind of work you do?
I'm a project manager for a tech firm.
Interesting. And you're driving this, what is it, Range Rover? Pretty pricey ride?
Yes, sir, it's mine. I financed it like any.
Officer Derek Brennan had been with the Riverside Police Department for 11 years when he made the traffic stop that would end his career, cost the city $4.7 million, and become a case study in how racial profiling operates on American roads. He was 36 years old, experienced enough to know better, but apparently convinced that his badge gave him the right to humiliate anyone who didn't, fit his narrow view of who belonged in certain neighborhoods. Tuesday evening, in an affluent suburb of Cincinnati, he decided to pull over a black man driving a Mercedes-AMG GT for what he would later claim was failure to signal, though his own dash cam would prove otherwise. The driver was Marcus Thompson, a three-time Pro Bowl running back who'd spent 12 years breaking records and building a reputation as one of the most respected players in the NFL. What Brennan did next, ignoring basic procedure, dismissing clear identification, and escalating a non-existent violation into a public humiliation, would become a textbook example of how racial profiling destroys lives and careers. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop a comment right now and tell me your country, your state, wherever you are. If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Riverside Boulevard runs through one of Cincinnati's most exclusive neighborhoods, the kind of place where houses start at $2 million and privacy is purchased by the acre, tree-lined and meticulously maintained. It connects the country club to the shopping district where luxury boutiques sell watches that cost more than most people's cars. The speed limit is 35, strictly enforced with hidden cameras at every intersection. It was 7:23 on a Tuesday evening in October. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that reflected off the windows of the estates. The evening traffic was light, mostly residents returning from downtown offices or heading to dinner reservations at the club. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of burning leaves and the last roses of the season from the manicured gardens that lined the boulevard. Marcus Thompson had been with the Cincinnati Bengals for 12 years. 12 years of dedication that had transformed him from a second-round draft pick to one of the most dominant running backs in the league. He'd spent 4 years as the team's lead rusher, averaging over 1,400 yards per season and setting a franchise record with 22 touchdowns in a single year. 4 years before that, establishing himself as the most reliable third-down back in the AFC, converting crucial plays when games hung in the balance. For years before that, learning the system, studying film until his eyes burned, proving he belonged. He had 3 Pro Bowl selections, each one earned through consistency and excellence. He'd received the Walter Payton Man of the Year award for his work establishing youth sports programs in underserved communities. His coaches called him the consummate professional. His teammates called him Cap, short for captain, though he'd never worn the C on his jersey, preferring to lead by example rather than title. At 41 years old, Marcus was exactly where he'd worked to be. Respected, successful, secure. That Tuesday, Marcus was off duty in the truest sense, returning from a charity board meeting downtown where he served as vice president. He wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit with a crisp white shirt, no tie, the top button undone. Professional, but not ostentatious. His Super Bowl ring was in the glove compartment along with his wallet and phone, items he'd removed during the meeting to avoid distraction. He looked like what he was. A successful professional heading home after a day of meetings. He'd done nothing to attract attention. He'd spoken to no one except the valet at the downtown club where the meeting was held. But to Officer Derek Brennan, following 2 cars behind, Marcus's presence on Riverside Boulevard was suspicious. Derek Brennan was 36 years old. He'd been with the Riverside Police Department for 11 years, transferring from Columbus after what his file euphemistically called a personality conflict with supervisors. He was competent at paperwork, aggressive in pursuit, and deeply concerned about maintaining what he called the character of the neighborhoods he patrolled. He was married with 2 kids, coached Little League on weekends, and attended church most Sundays when his shift allowed. And this Tuesday evening, Brennan had noticed something that activated every bias he'd cultivated over 11 years. A black man driving a $150,000 car through his sector. In Brennan's mind, the equation was simple. Expensive car plus black driver equals drug dealer. Never mind that the car had dealer plates from the luxury dealership 4 blocks away. Never mind that the driver was obeying every traffic law. Never mind that Riverside Boulevard was a public road. Brennan saw a black man and decided he didn't belong. He followed Marcus for 8 blocks, running the plates, looking for any violation that would justify the stop he'd already decided to make. Then he called it in. Unit 73 to dispatch. I've got a black Mercedes, tag David Henry 9472, traveling southbound on Riverside. Driver appears to be African-American male. I'm going to initiate a traffic stop. Copy 7-3. What's the violation? Brennan paused. He hadn't seen one. Failure to signal lane change at Riverside, and third, there had been no lane change. His own dashcam would later prove the Mercedes had maintained a steady course in the right lane for the entire 8 blocks. But Brennan had made his decision. Derek Brennan had been with the Riverside Police Department for 11 years. In that time, he'd compiled a record that should have raised red flags at every level of supervision. 14 complaints. 14. 12 of them involved allegations of racial profiling or excessive force against people of color. 3 had been sustained, resulting in written warnings and 1 2-day suspension without pay. The other 11 had been closed with insufficient evidence despite dashcam footage that mysteriously malfunctioned during crucial moments. Brennan had a pattern. He responded aggressively to calls involving people of color in spaces where he didn't think they belonged. In 2018, he detained a black surgeon for 45 minutes outside the hospital where she worked, insisting her ID was fake despite multiple colleagues vouching for her. In 2020, he'd handcuffed a black real estate agent showing a house to clients, claiming he was burglarizing the property despite having keys and documentation. In 2022, he'd pulled his weapon on a black teenager walking through the neighborhood where the boy's grandmother lived, claiming he matched a suspect description that didn't exist. The pattern was clear. The documentation was extensive, but somehow Brennan remained on patrol. His supervisors noted in evaluations that he was proactive but sometimes overzealous. But those notes never translated into meaningful consequences. When Brennan activated his lights behind the Mercedes on Riverside Boulevard, his mind immediately filled in a narrative. Drug dealer, probably armed, definitely doesn't live here, needs to learn this isn't his territory. Brennan activated his lights at 7:31 p.m. The Mercedes immediately slowed and pulled to the curb in front of the Riverside Shopping Plaza, a well-lit area with multiple security cameras and steady foot traffic. Marcus chose the location deliberately, wanting witnesses. Brennan approached the vehicle with his hand on his weapon, despite having no articulable reason to fear for his safety. The dashcam would show Marcus had pulled over immediately, turned on his interior lights, and placed both hands on the steering wheel, following the protocol every black man in America learns not from driver's ed, but from survival: license and registration. Marcus turned slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Good evening, officer. May I ask why you pulled me over?" "License and registration. Now, sir, my wallet is in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for it slowly," I said. "Now, don't make me repeat myself." Marcus retrieved his documentation with deliberate movements. His Ohio driver's license, his vehicle registration, his NFL Players Association card clearly visible in his wallet. Brennan took the documents and returned to his cruiser, leaving Marcus sitting in the increasing darkness. He ran the license, which came back clean. He ran the registration, which showed the vehicle purchased 3 weeks ago. He ran Marcus's name through every database available. What came back should have been enough. Marcus Thompson, age 41, no warrants, no arrests, no violations beyond 2 speeding tickets in 20 years of driving. But Brennan wasn't satisfied. "Have you ever been pulled over for driving while black?" Type yes or no in the comments. Marcus felt the familiar cocktail of emotions: anger, frustration, resignation, but kept it controlled. "Officer, I know my rights. You need reasonable articulable suspicion for this stop. What traffic violation am I being accused of?" Brennan didn't like being challenged. Most people he stopped didn't cite Terry v. Ohio. They just complied. "You failed to signal when changing lanes back at 3rd Street. "Officer, I didn't change lanes. I've been in the right lane since I turned onto Riverside from downtown. Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm stating a fact. Your dashcam will show I maintained my lane." The conversation had drawn attention. A woman walking her dog had stopped, phoned out. A couple leaving the boutique behind them was watching. Someone in the coffee shop was recording through the window. "Step out of the vehicle." For what purpose? Step out of the vehicle now. Marcus made a decision. He would comply, but he would document everything. "Officer, I'm Marcus Thompson, Cincinnati Bengals. I've been with the team for 12 years. I'm reaching for my phone to record this interaction for both our protection." Brennan's hand moved to his weapon. They said, "Get out. Keep your hands where I can see them. You're asking me to exit my vehicle with my hands visible while also forbidding me from moving my hands. Which instruction should I follow?" "Don't get smart with me. You people always thinking above the law, you people." There it was, on camera. Clear as day. Marcus slowly opened his door. "I'm complying under protest. I'm Marcus Thompson, 3-time Pro Bowl running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. Badge number 731 is conducting an illegal stop without reasonable suspicion." A crowd was forming. Several people were recording. Someone called out, "That's Marcus Thompson. That's our running back. Brennan had a choice. He could recognize his mistake, check the ID more carefully, apologize for the confusion, and let everyone go about their evening. Or he could double down on his assumption that a black man in an expensive car must be doing something wrong. He had made this stop in front of witnesses. He had escalated despite having no valid reason, and backing down now would mean admitting he'd been wrong about his assumptions. So he doubled down. Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. You're being detained for suspected DUI, officer. You haven't conducted any field sobriety test. You haven't asked if I've been drinking. This is clearly pretextual. Turn around now, or I'm adding resisting arrest. Marcus looked directly at the nearest person recording. For the record, I have not been drinking. I'm returning from a charity board meeting. This officer is detaining me without cause after a traffic stop for a violation that didn't occur. My name is Marcus Thompson. I play for the Cincinnati Bengals. Please keep recording. Several people were already recording. The woman with the dog had called 911 to report what she described as police harassment. The couple from the boutique was the coffee shop had become an impromptu viewing gallery. Marcus turned slowly, placing his hands on the warm hood of his Mercedes. I'm complying under protest. I am Marcus Thompson of the Cincinnati Bengals. This officer is detaining me for suspected DUI without conducting any assessment. Everyone here is witnessing this. Please record it. Brennan grabbed Marcus's wrist aggressively, wrenching it behind his back. The movement was unnecessarily forceful, designed to assert dominance rather than secure compliance from someone who wasn't resisting. You're under arrest for DUI and resisting arrest. Having resisted and you've no probable cause for DUI. This is an unlawful arrest. Tell it to the judge. The crowd was growing vocal. He didn't do anything. That's Marcus Thompson. This is racist. We're recording everything. Do you think Brennan should have just apologized and let Marcus go at this point? Let me know below. Brennan pushed Marcus toward his patrol car, hands cuffed behind his back. Outside, the crowd had grown to over 20 people, all recording, all vocal about what they were witnessing. Marcus saw what he'd expected. Body cameras, dash cameras, cell phones, evidence. This was all being documented. Officer Brennan, Marcus said, reading his nameplate. You are violating my Fourth Amendment rights. You initiated a stop without reasonable suspicion. You're arresting me without probable cause. This will end your career. Brennan said nothing, pushing Marcus into the back seat with unnecessary force. The drive to the Riverside police station took 12 minutes. Marcus spent it mentally cataloging every violation, every procedural error, every piece of the lawsuit he would file. He had dealt with racism before, subtle and overt, throughout his career. He knew how to build a case, and this case was building itself. They arrived at the station. Brennan walked Marcus inside, still handcuffed, past the front desk where Sergeant Patricia Williams looked up with surprise. Derek, what do you have? DUI arrest, failure to signal. Resisting, Marcus spoke up, voice clear and controlled. Ma'am, I'm Marcus Thompson of the Cincinnati Bengals. This officer stopped me without cause on Riverside Boulevard. I haven't been drinking. He never conducted a field sobriety test. This is an unlawful arrest based on racial profiling. Williams's face went pale. Marcus Thompson, the running back. The desk sergeant examined Marcus's license carefully. The hologram caught the light. The real ID star was clear. The photo matched despite being several years old. Derek, this is a valid Ohio license. Could be fake. These dealers have good connections. Dealers? I'm a professional athlete. Check your Cecil. Williams was already typing. Can you confirm your date of birth? Marcus recited it from memory. The sergeant picked up the phone. I need to verify an ID. Marcus Thompson, Dobay, April 10th, 1983. The confirmation came back within 3 minutes. Marcus Thompson, professional athlete, Cincinnati Bengals, 12-year veteran. Current address in Indian Hill, no warrants, no arrests, no criminal history whatsoever. Williams hung up and turned to Brennan, voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. You arrested Marcus Thompson, 3-time Pro Bowl selection, Walter Payton Award winner, for a DUI without conducting a field test after a stop for a lane change that your own dashcam will show didn't happen. I saw what I saw. He was driving erratically. Derek had just pulled up your dashcam feed on my monitor. He maintained perfect lane position for 8 blocks. You had no cause for this stop. Release him immediately. Brennan finally began to understand what he'd done, but pride prevented admission. He was resisting, acting suspicious. Everything is on camera, multiple angles. This is going to end badly. Uncuff him now. Captain James Rodriguez arrived within minutes. Rodriguez, a 25-year veteran who'd seen plenty of bad stops, but rarely one this egregious with this high-profile a victim. Brennan tried to explain. stumbling over words that wouldn't form a coherent justification. Rodriguez listened, expression darkening, then turned to Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, on behalf of the Riverside Police Department, I sincerely apologize. This is inexcusable." Marcus nodded, but remained silent. He was building his case. Every word mattered. Rodriguez turned to Brennan. "Badge and weapon. Administrative leave effective immediately." "Captac, I was just doing my job." He was driving a high-end vehicle in a high-crime area. Riverside Boulevard is not a high-crime area. It's one of the wealthiest streets in the state. You racially profiled a respected member of our community. "Give me your badge." Brennan handed them over, hands shaking. For the first time, he seemed to understand what he'd done. Should officers face automatic termination after proven racial profiling? Drop your answer. Within 2 hours, the videos had exploded across social media, multiple angles from different witnesses, the initial stop, the "you people" comment, the arrest without cause. Marcus's calm declaration of his identity, Brennan's refusal to accept reality. NFL star arrested for driving while black in Cincinnati suburb, Bengals running back Marcus Thompson racially profiled during traffic stop. "You people, cops, racist traffic stop, a Pro Bowl player goes viral." The outrage was immediate and intense. The NFL Players Association issued a formal statement condemning the arrest and calling for a federal investigation. The Cincinnati Bengals organization called for immediate accountability. Former teammates, coaches, and sports commentators flooded social media with support for Marcus and condemnation of the arrest. The city of Riverside tried damage control. The mayor issued a statement within hours. "The actions depicted in these videos do not represent our values or our policies. We take these allegations seriously and will conduct a thorough investigation." But the real damage was done. The video showed everything: a black man in an expensive car obeying every law. Stopped without cause, arrested without justification, his accomplished life dismissed because one officer couldn't see past the color of his skin. Civil rights attorneys contacted Marcus within hours. This wasn't just a bad stop. This was a clear pattern of constitutional violations captured on multiple cameras. The lawsuit named Officer Derek Brennan individually and the city of Riverside for failure to supervise. The claims were extensive: violation of Fourth Amendment rights through an illegal stop and false arrest, violation of 14th Amendment equal protection through racial profiling, false imprisonment through arrest without probable cause, intentional infliction of emotional distress through public humiliation, assault through excessive force during handcuffing, defamation through false claims of DUI and resisting arrest, violation of Ohio state laws against bias-based profiling, negligent retention of an officer with a documented pattern of discrimination, failure to train on constitutional requirements for traffic stops, failure to supervise despite multiple prior complaints. The city's attorneys reviewed the evidence and reached the same conclusion: indefensible. The videos were everywhere. The witnesses were credible. The dashcam contradicted every claim Brennan made. Marcus had done everything right, from choosing a well-lit location to calmly stating his identity for the cameras. The city settled within 4 months. $4.7 million paid to Marcus Thompson, who announced he would donate every penny to organizations fighting racial profiling and police reform. Officer Derek Brennan was terminated 30 days after the incident. The termination letter was final and devastating. "Your actions on October 15th violated department policy, state law, and constitutional requirements. You initiated a pretextual stop, escalated without cause, and arrested a citizen without probable cause based solely on racial bias. Your conduct has irreparably damaged the department's relationship with the community." Brennan's name was entered into the National Decertification Index. His law enforcement career was over at 36 years old. He would never wear a badge again. The Riverside Police Department faced intense scrutiny. How had Brennan, with 14 complaints over 11 years, remained on patrol? Why hadn't supervisors intervened after the pattern became clear? Internal Affairs conducted a comprehensive review. The findings were damning. Complaints against officers for bias-based policing were routinely downgraded to dashcam malfunctions during controversial stops were never investigated. Supervision reports noting overzealous behavior were filed without action. Statistical analysis showed black drivers were 3.4 times more likely to be stopped in Riverside despite being only 12% of through traffic. No officer had been terminated for discrimination in the department's 40-year history. Training on implicit bias and de-escalation was optional and rarely attended. The same officers appeared repeatedly in complaints with no progressive discipline. The Department of Justice opened a pattern and practice investigation. Their findings confirmed systemic failure at every level. Reforms were announced. Mandatory body cameras with automatic activation and severe penalties for tampering. Quarterly reviews of stop data by race, with explanations required for disparities. Mandatory implicit bias training with testing and annual research. Early warning system flagging officers with multiple complaints. Community oversight board with subpoena power and binding recommendations. Requirements for supervisors to review all stops involving cross-racial interactions. Automatic escalation of discrimination complaints to outside investigators. Zero-tolerance policy for pretextual stops with termination for violations. Marcus testified before the city council. His testimony was powerful. I've been blessed with talents that made me famous, wealthy, respected in this community. I've represented this city with pride for 12 years. I've signed autographs for Officer Brennan's kids at community events. But on October 15th, none of that mattered. I was just another black man in a nice car who didn't belong. He paused, letting the weight settle. If this can happen to me, with all my privileges and platforms and ability to hire the best attorneys, what happens to the single mother driving to her night shift? The teenager heading home from practice? The grandfather picking up groceries? How many Derek Brennans are out there, protected by silence and systemic indifference? The room was silent. Should racial profiling in traffic stops trigger automatic federal investigation? Drop your answer. This wasn't just about one traffic stop on one Tuesday evening. This was proof that for some people, no achievement is enough when bias has made its decision. Marcus Thompson had done everything society asked. He'd excelled in his profession. He'd given back to his community. He'd conducted himself with dignity and respect. He was driving his own car on a public road, obeying every law. And none of it mattered, because Derek Brennan saw a black man in a space where his biased mind said black men didn't belong. Every fact that contradicted this assumption was dismissed. The dealer plates became evidence of drug dealing. The calm compliance became suspicious behavior. The knowledge of constitutional rights became resistance. This is how systemic racism operates on American roads. It's not always dramatic chases or violent confrontations. Sometimes it's quiet assumptions that turn routine drives into ordeals. It's the extra scrutiny at certain exits. It's the following 4 blocks looking for any violation. It's the immediate assumption of criminality despite evidence of success. And when that bias is backed by the authority to detain, arrest, and humiliate, it doesn't just harm individuals. It sends a message: you don't belong here. No matter your accomplishments, no matter your contributions, no matter your humanity. Derek Brennan's career is over. That's justice. The city paid $4.7 million. That's accountability. Reforms were implemented. That's progress. But money and terminations don't undo the humiliation of being handcuffed on a public street for existing while black. They don't restore the dignity stripped away by bias. They don't erase the message that even Pro Bowl selections and charity work aren't enough to protect you from assumptions. The real question is, what changes now? How many more viral videos before we address the bias that makes them possible? How many more millions in settlements before we invest in prevention? How many more careers destroyed before we admit that the problem isn't a few bad apples, but the barrel itself? Because if we don't change the culture that created Derek Brennan, then we're just waiting for the next officer, the next athlete, the next viral video of someone's worst assumptions captured. High definition. Comment if you believe this should be law. Any officer with 3 sustained bias complaints should face automatic termination. And if you think these stories need to be told, if you believe accountability starts with awareness and change starts with pressure, then hit that subscribe button, because we're not stopping. We're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding better. We're going to keep fighting for the commuters, the professionals, the ordinary people who deserve to drive home without being criminalized for their skin color. What's your biggest takeaway from this story? Drop it in the comments below. This isn't just about one officer, one athlete, one traffic stop. It's about whether we're willing to accept a society where driving while black remains probable cause for harassment. The choice is ours, and the clock is ticking. See you in the next one.